I want to say to you, Lisa, before we go any further, I am truly sorry for what you've had to go through in your life. This is extremely tragic. It's a horrible thing to have gone through and deal with. Um, as a child, how was it for you dealing with this from the time you were little and living with your father until you were 6, and then y'all left, and then y'all came back, and then your mother was killed, and then all of that after that? I know you had mentioned to me you went to live with your grandparents, but then shortly after that, before the year was out, your grandfather died, correct?
That's right. Yes. My grandmother buried my mother. I lost my mom Christmas Eve. She buried her mother in February, and then she buried my grandfather in October. So, answering how I felt, it was very confusing. It was extremely confusing. So let's start with when I lived at home, when we were living as a family at home. So by turns, my father was so loving, and so I remember him being loving. I remember moments with him. It's so strange what you remember. I remember listening to Otis Redding's sitting on the dock of the bay with my daddy. I remember moments like that, and having those kinds of memories. And just really sweet kinds of moments of, like I said, him calling me his smart cookie. And then I would waken in the middle of the night, like I told you, to this monster that I didn't know. And I know that's my characterization, but that's my memory. And so, and I've learned in psychology, that's my memory, and I am entitled, to that memory. And that's what he was in that moment. He was a monster. He was someone to be afraid of in that moment. He was someone to be terrified of. I know that he could have, in that moment, before I knew that he was actually capable of killing her, he could have killed her. I knew that. And even before I even realized what all of that was. And so that was a very, very confusing kind of place to be. It was very confusing when she was dying, and I'm trying to figure out, because as I told you, I don't remember how I got there. So my memory is, it's like I woke up and I'm beside my mother, and my mother was dying, and I don't remember that. I don't remember exactly. I don't remember anything about how I got there. It's like everything before that was blocked out. And so I'm there, and my father is trying to tell me something about she's had an accident and all of this, and then he's taking me away, and I'm just extremely confused by this, because I know in my 7-year-old brain that this is not okay. Like, my mother is, something is terribly, terribly wrong, and she's trying to talk to me, and I can't understand anything that she's trying to say. And my father's trying to take me away from this situation, and it's very, very confusing. And so then I go to live with my grandparents. And when I go to live with my grandparents, of course, and I can imagine, no, I can't imagine what it's like, to have one of your only two children taken away in such a horribly tragic event at the hands of another person, and how you have to feel when you bring the child into that situation who still has a living parent that is the parent that is responsible. So, looking at it empathically from their perspective, they've got me in their home, and this man is still coming and trying to see this child, but they're telling me, and I believe rightfully so, I'm hearing this is the killer of your mother. But then this man is here, and he's still loving toward me. And how confusing that was. He's fighting for custody of me, but I don't want to go because I'm afraid of him. But he's still my daddy. And that's an incredibly, incredibly confusing kind of place.